My name is Roseth. I have a consulting business in which I work with folks in technology strategy, including things like XR. Very bullish in the space. I'm also the chapter president of the Minneapolis VR ARA Association. So we've been around now for 6-8 months. Did another event here. We're really excited about the partnership with REM5 and them bringing us down to their space and having us all here. So if anybody's interested in joining as a member of the VR ARA, it's about 60,000 people across the world, 70 chapters worldwide. Great community. We do events here about once every quarter. So we're going to be doing some future ones. We've got one in healthcare coming up that I'm really excited about. And then we're starting an email list as well. So we'll let folks know about upcoming events and opportunities in the VRA space. So I want to start out by saying that obviously the past 6 months has seen a lot of growth in the term Metaverse, with Facebook coming out and kind of really bringing that word back into the American lexicon. It is kind of stormed the castle, as it were, and so we're now all very much aware of what this term means. I'm going to have each one of these fine folks introduce themselves in a moment, but I kind of want to set the stage with asking each one of them what they believe the metaverse is. I think that's really the biggest question that we all have on our minds right now, is everybody is kind of unsure exactly what this term means, what it is, what it isn't. So I'm going to pass the mic to Chris. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves really quick, who you are, what you do, and as small of an elevator pitch around what you think the metaverse is.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. I'm Chris Iles with the Minnesota Twins. I'm the Senior Director of Brand Experience and Innovation for the ball club. So I get to do a whole variety of cool things, everything from creating awesome digital experiences like we've created with our friends at REM5 over here, to managing the Minnesota Twins Accelerator with Techstars, of which we have a current company represented here today. So I get to play with technology and try to make cool stuff for fans all day, every day, which is incredible. What does the metaverse mean? That's a pretty big question. I think to me, it can be complex, but really, I think to me it's pretty simple. It's just the next iteration of what the internet's going to be, whether you call it the metaverse, Web3, whatever. It's the next iteration of the internet that's going to be kind of inextricably intertwined with our reality and everyday life.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Hi everybody, I'm Linnea. I'm an artist, creator, digital, virtual, all kinds of color and all kinds of fun. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to be part of this kind of tech scene and the forefront of where we're going with, all our communications today. For me, the metaverse it aligns with what Chris said. It is the next iteration of how the world's going to communicate.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry about we are a tech company. All of our very complicated tech works are not very complicated tech. Doesn't work today. Sorry about that. A couple quick house cleaning things. One is when you came in the front door, if you take a hard right, that's where the restrooms are. Also, VR ARA has kindly hosted tonight's event, so all the beer and wine is on them. And the food, so help yourself. Don't let it go to waste. And then lastly, today is for you all, right? We want to keep this lively, fun, interactive. Metaverse is a big topic. It is yet to be defined, generally speaking, so let's use this time together to bounce ideas off each other and have some fun dialogue. There is a little sheet that has a QR code that's kind of popping around here. If you have a chance and scan that with your phone, it will bring you to a polling system where you can actually ask a question for us that we can get to towards the end. And you can also upvote other questions that are in there. So if something's resonated with you, click on it, and then at the end here, when we have time, we can democratically find what the most popular questions are. Cool, so my name is Amir Berenjian, co-founder of REM5. We started this crazy business about 5 years ago with really the vision around making immersive tech accessible to this community and empowering those that can find valuable use cases for it. While we've made a lot of leaps and bounds over the last 5 years in terms of how accessible this tech is, you'd be surprised at how few people have still experienced it. And if you step outside of gaming, that number gets even smaller. So on nights and weekends, we do VR for arts and entertainment, kind of like a Topgolf, but with high-end VR. And then during the day, we're focused on deploying the technology for learning and development purposes, working both with corporations up to Fortune 500, all the way to working with K through 12, bringing the Magic School Bus to life, which is a ton of fun. In terms of the metaverse, we'll get deeper into that today, but at a really high level, to echo what Chris and Linnea said. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still really early. Much of what the quote-unquote metaverse is yet to be defined. I think I can speak for a lot of people in this room that hopefully we come up with a new word in 2023 and beyond. We can just be done with the word metaverse. But at the end of the day, it is technology enabling human connection to me. So one could argue that the radio was a metaverse. The AOL chat room that I was chatting with my friends in 9th grade, that was the metaverse of its time. And this next iteration, and arguably the last iteration of the metaverse, is one where you can be fully present through spatial technologies of VR and AR. So it's just a spectrum, like I think Chris said, and we're excited to be on the doorstep of the next generation of what that looks like.
Well said, well said. So with that in mind, to keep kind of digging into, for anybody that maybe doesn't know, I'm sure everybody has various kind of levels of understanding of what could be involved in the metaverse. I want to ask us a kind of a separate angle on that question. What is the metaverse comprised of? Because there's technology aspects of it, right? There's things like hardware. What kind of, the internet has had many years to evolve from, like AOL into the next thing, right? There's infrastructure, there's all of those pieces. And there's so many different, I would say, angles that are coming together, in which we now have this singular term metaverse again. But what would you say the metaverse is comprised of as it relates to, either hardware, software, or anything else? Chris, we'll start with you again.
All right. Before I jump into my answer, I'd like to thank Amir for pointing out where the bathrooms are. The first time I was here, I asked the question, and of course he told me that the bathrooms are virtual, and I ended up missing myself. So that didn't happen to anyone here today. But what comprises the metaverse? I'm gonna miss a ton of stuff here because it's so much. But people talk about VR, AR, XR. Web3 hardware, like one of the companies in our accelerator is making, experiential audio that adds a tactile dimension to audio that frankly most people have never experienced. So it's those technologies that enable this alternate reality to feel more real and blur the lines between what is virtual and what is real.
Awesome.
I think a lot of the way that I understand the metaverse and what that will become has a lot to do with the current art exhibit here, the Quantum Mirror, which we already all have a virtual presence. Like, you already exist out there in some way virtual that's separate from your human meat form, right? So all that is already out there. All of that is you exploring this other world. You have this capability to put forth this presence that's separate from your corporeal body, and to be able to put your consciousness into the same container as everybody else. That's what I'm seeing is happening. That's where I think that the metaverse will end up being, is like these presences. And that's how we transformative too, because we're already familiar with being present in that sort of separate space in the virtual world, and be able to take that and everyone will kind of be carried by this flow into this new world, which will hopefully have an interim versus the metaverse, right?
One can only hope. Maybe a quick show of hands. Who all has actually tried VR in this room here? Hands up. Awesome. That's pretty sweet. Very self-selected group here tonight. Usually it is 10%, 20% of the room. How about augmented reality? Has anybody tried augmented reality in the room? Cool. What about augmented reality glasses? So not looking through a mobile device. Or smaller room. There's a couple of AR devs in the room right now. Yeah, I mean, it's in this next iteration of introducing spatial computing and enabling this human connection. Like Linnea said, it's fascinating because it's been this long journey, and whether we're all here to admit it or not, again, self-selected group, very competent when it comes to this, versus the mainstream, but we've already transitioned to a digital-first species. I mean, you look at, I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, right? I mean, they're growing up with iPads, trying to use them for educational purposes, but whether or not I will try to fight that, eventually they're ending up with computers in their hands. It's becoming an everyday way of life, how they engage with content, how they engage with others. So we're there. In terms of what it's going to be comprised of, there's just like any of its predecessors, a PC or mobile, there's a hardware component, there's a software component. Hardware has come a long way over the last 5 years. These VR headsets that you see around the space, those are $5,000 setups in each one of those pods, and they're a pain in the butt to manage and operate. Fast forward to today, we have an Oculus Quest 2, which is they have the most market share in the VR space. I think they have 10 million headsets plus out in the market today. It's about a $250 headset, 6 degrees of freedom, wildly immersive. If you would ask me 5 years ago if that hardware was available today, I would have said no. I mean, the thing is magical. In terms of a piece of hardware, the tricky part is when we move into the software. We still have a long way to go when it comes to software. Every Christmas season, everybody in the VR industry says, we made it. VR finally went mainstream. The Metaverse is mainstream. Oculus is #1 in the App Store every holiday season. Now we're almost in February, it's gone. Happens every year, the exact same thing. Because there's no value for the mainstream yet. There's no reason for people to get into VR on a regular basis. The glitz and the glamour and the shiny stuff wears off after using it a couple times. So we still have a ways to go in terms of building the software. And then when we talk about Metaverse, like we're going to dive deeper into today, it gets much more complicated because you have these closed Metaverse systems which are being built right now. We'll talk about it a little bit later, the Roblox, the Fortnite of the world, all the way to like Facebook's Horizon. These are closed metaverses, we're going to use that terminology. The future is not closed. We can all hope that it is not closed, which we can dive into more later.
Well, that's funny because that's actually was my next question to talk specifically, and I know you have your opinion on this based on Tony Parisi's 7 principles. Is there one metaverse or are there a whole bunch of them?
Yeah, I think it's whoever said this earlier, Chris. It's the internet. It's a more immersive version of the internet. Is the way we look at it, right? So we can talk about, and for those that want to demo it later today, this is a Minnesota Twins Hall of Fame that we worked with Chris on. This is purely web-based and completely decentralized. So nobody is controlling what happens in this space or accessing the data of what's happening in this space. So eventually, we would love to see a metaverse that's completely open like this. And the broader metaverse is comprised of many, many stops and experiences and ways to share human connection under this broader umbrella.
So you mentioned a couple of things in there, and I don't know how much experience you guys may have had with, so what you mentioned, the Sandbox, Decentraland, Roblox, Horizon. There's gaming brands out there like Axie Infinity, Gods Unchained, and a number of other ones. For anybody who may not have experienced or gone into any of these I guess, quote unquote metaverse ecosystems. Do any of you guys have any thoughts around what somebody might see when they go into like a Roblox or a Decentraland or something like that?
Linnea spends the most time in any of the platforms than any of us.
Apparently, I spend the most time in any of these platforms. I am like as a creator, as an artist who's been making NFTs since last April now. It's been almost a year since I got into this entire like digital crypto world. I've recently been building within the meta world called crypto voxels, and I have created a digital virtual gallery that you can go into either on your browser, on your phone, put on a headset, and visit this gallery in the virtual world and see this in 3D. And I find like this world is really, really conducive to artists and creating galleries and creating an experience that you as, maybe someone I wouldn't run into in real life, you're now able to cross paths with me in this meta world. And it's been absolutely phenomenal as far as like connecting my own work to a global audience, connecting my own work to other collectors, other artists. It's basically a lot of what I see there happening is it's a ticket to a community.
Do you or anybody else have thoughts on, so like places like Roblox or specifically Decentraland and Sandbox, they've got these ridiculous real estate prices going on there. What do you think that things might look like in a few years in terms of real estate investing? Obviously, it's something that's scalable and people are going to put something in those places. Any thoughts on what those ecosystems could look like, where I plug in, I put on my headset, I go in there, and then am I mixing with people from all around the world in kind of this single, metaverse, meta mall kind of experience where I can go shopping or I can go to Vegas with my friends? Like, what do you guys think it could look like in a few years?
I think it could get there. Right now, there's still a lot of empty plots, even with all the speculation and everything that's going on, and it's still pretty early. Like for the most part, there's not a ton. Everyone's not familiar. Everyone hasn't been there already. But I do believe that with all the spaces, even with all the speculation, there is going to be a lot more. Like we're going to have to pull in the artists to build those spaces for us. Like you can buy all the real estate you want in all these different meta worlds, but what's going to happen until you bring somebody in to build it? So I think that will bring in a lot of builders. That will bring along everyone's crew with that, all the painters, all the artists, everybody who wants to make something. They're going to have to be called up for this to actually happen, so that when you do step in, you will have that experience where you are able to walk through this fully envisioned world. Like you will be able to go buy your wearables, buy your art, like have these experiences.
Yeah, and I struggle with the concept of artificial scarcity in the metaverse, right? So we have this digital space, which you theoretically can have infinite of, and now all of a sudden somebody just said, we're going to have 100 plots, right? Your simple supply and demand economics drive the price up, right? If you actually step back, you're like, does that make any damn sense, right? On one hand, it makes no sense whatsoever. On the other hand, if certain plots of that land can uniquely provide me value as a user, then all of a sudden there's some utility there, right? It's tough for a generation that's not, if you talk to any 10-year-old right now, for instance, right? I think 55 million kids a day logged on to Roblox last quarter, right? This isn't like a theoretical pie in the sky, this is coming. It's like this is happening and not going backwards, it's only accelerating. When Lil Nas X threw a concert in Roblox, 33 million kids showed up. I bet if you talked to those kids and said, hey, did you go to the Lil Nas X concert? When they talk about it, they would not use the word virtual or metaverse. They would just talk about going to the concert, right? Like the terminology, the spectrum of terminology that we argue about is almost not a thing with the next generation. They are just focused on the actual experience and the feeling it brought them and the friends they made while they were there. And so back to the question, it's if there's a certain plot of land that is just like in the real world, if you're able to attract big artists that are throwing concerts there, or clothing brands that want to showcase things there, create experiences, then all of a sudden, that one unique plot of digital land starts to be worth something, right? But like Linnea said, there's a lot of empty land out there right now. That's purely speculation.
Well, so that actually brings up a great point, and it starts to kind of drive us a little more into, Chris, your area. So one of the NFT projects I've been following is called the Suites. And so what it is basically you can effectively reserve your suite at a sports village of some sort. And you can effectively swap out what is the theater or the sport that you are going to watch, right? So it could be a baseball game, it could be a football game, it could be horse racing, it could be any of those things. So that is, to Amir's point around scarcity, it is one stadium that you can buy a seat or a suite for, and you can meet up with your friends in the metaverse and go watch all of these things. It could be esports, or it could be, I don't know how they're gonna actually make some of those things work. But how do you see, either any thoughts around that kind of a metaverse experience, but also really like when it comes down to it, actual sports, whether it's virtual or more of an interactive AR experience, what do you see in the future for sports and entertainment?
That's a great question, that particular example, my mind goes to, man, that's a nightmare to match from a broadcast rights perspective. So I won't even start going there because that'll just bore everybody to death. But here's how I can see it playing out for Minnesota Twins. So as we are working to develop the next iteration of what the internet's going to look like, your fan experience is going to look significantly different than it does today. You're not going to go to a static website to buy tickets. The ticket buying is going to be an actual experience. You're going to be transported into a world where you're almost in like a virtual ticket buying experience that is going to be a part of the broader entertainment experience itself. We talk about the driveway to driveway experience with the Minnesota Twins. This extends even beyond that. So, it starts with ticket buying. Once you get yourself to the game, the way augmented reality is going to augment how a fan enjoys our game is going to be significant. Stats overlaid on top of players. We've seen Apple demonstrate, some of this functionality. It hasn't exactly come to life, but every time they roll out a new device, they start to demonstrate, a glimpse into the future of what this could look like. Overlaying stats, overlaying ball paths, overlaying, just really helping a fan visualize all of the data that's associated with the game. And baseball is certainly a game that has a lot of data tied to it. All sports do, but baseball especially. Those are just a few of the ways. I don't know that answers your question specifically. And I don't know that we know the full implications of what that's going to mean for the fan experience. But what we do know is that these technologies are going to make the live game experience much better, and the pieces that are not a part of that game experience, the ticket buying, tuning into a broadcast, it's going to make those a heck of a lot more interesting as well. And what's going to make it interesting is the fact that the virtual part of it is going to be almost indistinguishable. By the time this transition is totally made, it's going to be indistinguishable from what is happening live on the field. It's going to feel like it was always a part of it. But it's going to be really messy in there. And like my job is to like make those messes. Right. And that's what gets me going,
Yeah, sure. So why taking a step back again really quick here. So the term metaverse was from a book by Neil Stephenson in 1992, and it kind of stayed there pretty hidden for a while, and now all of a sudden it's the topic everywhere. why now? Amir, why don't we start with you and kind of head back this way? Like, why in this very moment are we now talking about this very abstract term of this kind of immersive world?
Yeah, I think even this time is a blip, right? Like I don't know if we're gonna be able to keep this momentum going. It's hot right now, but I don't know if it will be 6 months from now. I mean, our like when we talk about immersive technology, we start like there's a viewmaster sitting on the table right there, right? Like even when we're working with big companies looking to deploy tech in big ways, for perspective, we start with the viewmaster, right? As being the first mass market immersive technology out there, right? You think about it in a way, right? So like the concept of the metaverse, maybe it wasn't called that, but the concept of the construct and the concept of virtual reality, augmented reality, spatial computing is something that's been around for 100 years. We even have an older version of the Viewmaster that's like made out of wood from 1904 that like Sears Roebuck made the cards for. It's wild, right? So cool. But the reason I bring it up, one, it's fun, but two, it's like that was the original VR, AR device. All we're doing 100 years later is we're doing that digitally. The exact same concept of stereoscopic vision and transporting, democratizing an experience, right? So that's something new. The reason we're here talking about today, I think, are two things. One is, in the last decade, the computing power has finally caught up to the aspirations of what VR could be. If you try VR, we have the Nintendo Virtual Boy sitting around here somewhere. If you want to get a terrible headache and throw up on yourself, give it a go. It's not very fun. And finally in 2016, so everybody talks about Facebook and the Metaverse being like this new thing. It's been a very long road coming, right? They bought Oculus in 2014. I think Oculus did their Kickstarter in 2012. Facebook bought them for $2 billion plus another $1 billion of earnout in 2014 before they ever launched the product. And then they launched their first product in 2016, along with HTC. And really since then, it's been kind of this arms race. So there's been a lot going on in the background. Computing power caught up, the video chips are getting better. And then I think the pandemic has helped. Pandemic has sucked, don't get me wrong, it's terrible. But it has accelerated this conversation we're all having here today by a decade, right? To pick a number, right? We wouldn't be having these type of conversations if the pandemic wasn't there. The other tricky thing for anybody who's in the VR space that's in this room, the VR space, the AR space wasn't ready for prime time yet either. So the pandemic hit and everybody was saying, this is your time to shine. Why aren't you shining? It's because we weren't ready yet. Like we're still pre-iPhone is another analogy that I use to look at in terms of timing. But combination of those two things.
Awesome. So with that in mind, Linnea, you talked about content a little bit. One of the things that we're early on is the fact that like in the Microsoft HoloLens store, there's just nothing there, right? So you have this amazing device. There's not whole tons of stuff there for these experiences for people. Same in VR. In terms of like the creator economy, you kind of mentioned earlier. How do you see this kind of evolving over time, where you have a lot of experiences that need to be created, or you have a lot of 3D assets? You have tons of stuff that needs to be built out, right? So if you want to go shopping, you need to build a mall, or if you want to go, you have all of these actual physical structures to build out, and then art and all of these other things. What is the impact, and how do you see kind of the creator economy helping to build out some of the actual infrastructure for the metaverse as it evolves over the next 5 years?
That's a big question. I'm not sure I know where to start on that one. It is, I think, just a lot of bringing everybody who's already kind of familiar with like viewing a gallery or viewing sort of all these structures in real life, like bringing them into this place where it's a familiar and community kind of thing. I think the biggest thing for me is just the recognition of community. It's that if you make an NFT, it's not just a piece of art you own, it's a ticket into a community. And so that I think is going to pull more people into this, pull more people into kind of like the builder area. Where in real life, if you show up for an event and like could be this event tonight, you also get this blockchain like affirmation that you're also part of something now where you can trade that among yourselves. You can participate in a community that's there, and just being part of building something together. Like so much of it is connection. We are a social group of beings, and I keep falling back to that. Like that's been historically kind of where we all kind of commune with each other, and I think it's gonna happen again.
Awesome. Yeah, I just bought my first NFT and kind of was pulled into this community. It's kind of a lower version of Bored Ape Yacht Club, but that community just like exploded. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of this metaverse stuff is going to come around. NFTs are obviously going to be a very big piece of that, and that has a lot of different contexts for other parts of the technology stack, I guess. So, Chris, we talked once about NFTs and how this could kind of start to make its way into some aspects that you're involved with. So, what do you see as NFTs and how they could affect more things on the business side, specifically, in terms of what the Twins does?
Yeah, so I think NFTs and blockchain technology in general are pretty fascinating. Minnesota Twins, we launched minted our first NFT in September of this year. So certainly not ahead of where the NBA was, but it's a space we've dabbled in. We actually launched it in conjunction with the second iteration of this product here in the Metaverse. That was interesting, but I think we do ourselves a disservice. I think the sports industry does ourselves a disservice if we think of digital collectibles as the only thing that can be brought to life through blockchain. There are much broader implications. For example, ticketing I think is something we need to be looking at. Blockchain facilitating customer loyalty and fan loyalty, being able to track a range of transactions across a fan's digital journey, everything from actually coming to the game, which is the holy grail of fan interaction, to watching a video, to interacting with us on social media, to playing one of the many games we've created on our mobile app. I think that technology can facilitate a much broader loyalty interaction from a fan, and I think digital collectibles are really just the start of it. We're already seeing the NFL moving to some blockchain ticketing. They've dabbled in it. WWE is doing some pretty incredible stuff in this space. So I think as the technology develops and as we as sports teams and brands get our heads around it a little bit better, I think that you're going to see a lot more utility out of the technology. And really the three buckets are, that are obvious to me are digital collectibles, ticketing, and loyalty.
Awesome. How many folks here either own an NFT or have dabbled in NFTs? Okay, so a fair amount. That's definitely one of the biggest things of 2022, it seems like, is the NFT space, is the growing interest in value and volume of these things. And I can definitely see NFTs being a big part of the metaverse, in that there's these assets, there are these kind of contractual things, there's this uniqueness to these assets and to this experience. So with that in mind, let's get into a little bit on the crypto side of things as well, because much of these metaverse experiences are being built on kind of this platform of crypto, and a lot of experiences, there's layer 1s and layer 2s and metaverse projects that are being entirely built on that. Any of you guys have, I guess, any experience or thoughts on how crypto would kind of be one of those infrastructure or plumbing components of the metaverse?
Sure, simple question. So
blockchain is going to be a pivotal piece of the pie for the metaverse. And while right now a lot of the hype is around JPEGs being traded, the next iteration of that is, not to keep picking on the 10-year-olds, there's none in the room, but if you know any 10-year-olds and have a conversation with them about where they spend their time and what is important to them, what they're wearing when they're in Roblox, what they have in their home space when they're in Roblox, is as important to them or more important to them than what they have in the physical world. That's where they're socializing with their friends, thanks to the pandemic. It was on its path before then, it just accelerated it. So when you talk to the 10-year-old in your life and what they ask for Christmas, they maybe didn't ask for a Minnesota Vikings is a bad choice. A Minnesota Wild jersey, we'll say. They're doing a little bit better. They maybe didn't ask for one in the real world. What they think would be really cool and hold some clout amongst their friends is owning a Minnesota Wild in the Metaverse, in Roblox. When they go to that Lil Nas X concert, they can rock their Minnesota Wild jersey. That's important to them, right? And so the next step, that's not a big step, just a tiny step towards that utility that Chris was talking about, is using the blockchain to validate ownership of assets while in the metaverse. So now the Minnesota Wild, the Minnesota Twins, when it's the next iteration of this space, right? You go in there, right now you can pick from 5 different jerseys. They're all cool, but you can create commerce in this space now where if I want to rock the 80s baby blue, I have to buy that. And through the blockchain, through your wallet, I can validate your ownership that only allows you to wear it while you're in the space, right? So that's where it starts to get, again, a baby step, but when we talk about value, like what's the actual value, that's really valuable to the youth today that's spending a lot of time in these spaces. The next iteration, back to the open metaverse, the problem right now is that we're in all these closed ecosystems. So if I'm wearing a Twins jersey in here, that's cool, but then if I want to go over to another space for the concert, I can't bring my Twins jersey with me, right? That's like the Minnesota Twins saying, you can come and buy a jersey at our stadium, but you can't wear it outside of Target Field, right? That doesn't make sense to any of us. So why is the metaverse set up that way? That's how it's currently set up. So blockchain will allow for the other buzzword in the space, interoperability. So allow you to bring assets from space to space for self-expression is kind of, again, a baby step. And now you iterate on that discussion, and there's a whole host of other use cases for it. But I think that's I can't remember what your original question was. Had a lot of buzzwords in it.
But yeah, I love the buzzwords. I think that what's fascinating if you take a real step back at this, like the especially crypto, NFTs, it is the absolute wild west out there. There are no rules in a lot of these metaverses, and so people are kind of effectively building entire infrastructure and cultural adaptation completely from scratch. One of the big components that's going to be necessary is a method of commerce. So you have all these cryptocurrencies that then can be used to purchase items. So in Sandbox, you have the Sand token. The Sand token is used to buy real estate, is used to buy assets inside of that. And one of the real interesting things is going to be, you said interoperability, is how do all of these chain projects, whether we're talking about Ethereum or Polygon or Solana, how do all of these interact with each other? Like the Twins jersey explanation, because they're all kind of almost have their own e-commerce systems that are being baked into them. So that is definitely going to be a big, something super interesting. Anybody else have any thoughts on crypto?
One last quick thing to add in too is like a lot of the thing that I struggle with is that like I come from despite being in VR, I come from a traditional finance background, and a lot of this stuff and the numbers of the returns within some of these ecosystems don't make any sense, right? And so to me as a fundamentalist, if it's too good to be true, it's not true or sustainable, right? So we're gonna see a lot of that fluff kind of work through the system over the next couple of years, but it's all part of the learning process, right? It's the .com bubble. Like, yes, it was a bubble, but we learned a lot in that process. We're going through that same process right now in crypto, and unfortunately, a lot of people are going to get caught with the bag over the next couple of years. But it's kind of the education process for the industry.
So talking about that, kind of going back to the concept of, getting beyond the hype. We are in a massive hype cycle around a lot of things, crypto, NFTs. What do you guys think, how it kind of plays out over the next year or so? Crypto is down right now. There's still speculation it'll go back up. NFTs are obviously in a massive, they're actually on the very top of the Gartner hype cycle right now. So how do you see, even the term Metaverse, which isn't even technically on the 2021 Gartner hype cycle, it should be. How do you see us kind of going through this hype cycle if we're at peak hype now, and then this being actually reasonably kind of working its way up the slope of enlightenment over the coming years to where, 5 years from now, we're actually like engaging with this. We don't call it the Metaverse, it's just like technology. Any thoughts?
That's a tough one, but I'll take a crack at it. I think it starts with organizations like ours, like the Minnesota Twins, activating in the space and helping bring public acceptance and understanding to what it is. If you think back, I sat through a session at CES a few weeks back, and if you remember, Fox basically made text messaging because of American Idol. They text messaging existed, but Fox brought it mainstream through voting for American Idol. I think you'll see major media companies start to jump on this type of technology, and it won't be hyped because it will just start to become mainstream by major media companies adopting it, sports organizations like ours adopting it, and just making it a part of the cultural fabric going forward.
Awesome. Linnea?
I think the cultural fabric is a huge part of it. Like I keep coming back to the community. I keep saying like this is just going to be the next part of how we all connect, how we are all talking to each other, and that for me is going to be what holds it together. I think like what will take virtual and mixed and all these different realities is going to be our ability to speak with each other on that.
Awesome. Amir, I know you got some thoughts on kind of where things are now and where they will kind of go, and some of the, I guess going back to like the principles of what the Metaverse is and what it isn't, and kind of how it evolves. We only have probably a few minutes left before we want to start getting to some other questions. Any final thoughts around kind of how the coming years will play out in terms of kind of the reality of what we'll see, beyond the hype of the Metaverse?
Yeah, I mean it's here to stay. It's just the next iteration. We need more creators creating in these immersive spaces, right? Back to what Linnea was saying earlier. That's our biggest thing. There's not enough value for people. There's not enough utility for people yet. Even though a Quest 2 headset costs $250, which there's a lot, you have to be privileged to be able to buy a $250 toy. But of the people that buy them, they collect dust, right? They need more utility. It's the iPhone in 2006. The iPhone was meant to play music and access the internet, right? That was Jobs' speech, 2007 or 2005. Either way, you get the point. It took years to develop utility. Fast forward to today, the iPhone has a meaningful role in the way we work, learn, play, socialize. All of the above, bar none, for everybody in this room, right? That's where we're headed with this technology, but we need more creators. The problem right now is you have too many tech people making what they think are compelling, high-value spaces, right? If Facebook launches another meeting app that's a boardroom in space, I'm gonna throw up on myself, right? It's like the lack of creativity is profound, right? And until more creators and artists rethink how to be using this medium, we're not going to get to that next layer, that next level. So it's really also the last thing I'll throw out too is that like we, especially as people in this room who are early thinkers, in this space, to even be thinking about this and be in this room today, you're in the 0.0001%. Like, it's our collective responsibility as we lay the foundational framework for this space, because it is where people are going to be spending a lot of increasingly amount of time in the future, right? Look at all the problems we have in the real world, right? If we turn away and just let things happen, there's no reason to believe we're not going to see a lot of those same problems we see in the real world extended into the virtual world and the metaverse. So for everybody in this room, the only thing I'd recommend is we talk about all these fancy buzzwords, stop reading about it and just go and do it, right? Like, that's the best way to do it. If you want to learn how to buy your first NFT, let me know, or there's 20 people in this room that would love to show you how to do it without spending $68 million, right? You can do it for 20 bucks, right? What's it like to be in a metaverse platform? There's several that are available that are completely free that you can do just from your computer and internet. Just go out, try it, see it for yourself. Let the wheels spin independently and not let a talking head from CNN kind of influence your vision of what the metaverse is and what it can be.
Awesome way to say that, and I'll kind of add to that by saying, part of why I got engaged in VR ARA and spun up a chapter here is to get people excited about and interested in this space, because I see it as absolutely the future in terms of the next evolution of technology like we talked up here today. So I'm very bullish on where it's going to go, and Amir's absolutely right in just getting engaged, learning what you can about it, and connecting and trying to build some of that community here, whether it's on the technology side, the experiential, the corporate, the creator side, all of that. You guys, it's the beginning of the first inning in this space, and you guys all kind of have an opportunity to get engaged.